Bienvenidos a todos los que están entrando en nuestro IG Live. Vamos a darle tiempo a todas las personas que quieren unirse, de unirse. Así que vamos a esperar unos 5 minutos. ¡Gracias! Vamos a esperar unos 5 minutos para que todas las personas que nos pueden o que se nos pueden unir, se unan. Y entonces comenzar nuestro diálogo del día de hoy. Principalmente quiero dar las gracias a Dominican Writers por esta gran oportunidad y estoy muy emocionada de conversar con todos ustedes. Así que vamos a darle tiempo, 5 minutos, para que todo el mundo se nos pueda unir. Esto es un Instagram takeover y vamos a hablar. We're going to talk about the importance of reading from a young age. I just realized I was speaking in Spanish. Funny, my brain didn't switch properly. We're going to give everybody 5 minutes to join us today, and then we are going to start our wonderful chat, exchange. Remember that towards the end, you're going to have an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. And I really hope this is useful to you, and if you can share this info with anybody that you think might benefit from it. Pretty much anyone who has young children or wants to learn, maybe somebody who's an educator. I feel that this conversation is going to help them a lot. So for those who just joined us, we are going to wait 5 minutes so everybody can come in and we can talk about the importance of reading from a young age. Thank you, Angie. No, I ni me di cuenta que estaba hablando en español. I didn't even realize I was speaking Spanish. I was like, and then I'm like, wait a second. That word didn't sound right. So, oh my God, I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I'm gonna get a book. I love this book. 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes for this conversation to start. No, you know what? I'm not going to play music. That's just weird. Welcome, Lena. Welcome, Walkie. I like that name. We're waiting for more people to join us. Not 3 more minutes. 3. And then we're going to start the conversation. Vamos a comenzar la conversación en 5 minutos, 5 minutes. But it's really like 3 minutes. You're welcome. So, this music is gonna put me to sleep. Really? Nah, we're not gonna do that. 1 more minute. We got welcome Belinda, I believe. W, I'm just gonna say W. Welcome in. Have a seat, get comfortable. Have your notepad ready if you wanna take notes. Okay. Well, it's 1:02. I mean, 5 minutes are up. So I'm glad that all of you joined, and I'm hoping more people comes in. But welcome to our IG Live, sponsored by Dominican Writers, the best. And today, my name is Lissarette Nisnevich, for those of you who don't know me. And I am an early childhood professional. I'm currently pursuing a PhD in developmental psychology, which means I'm learning how the brain works. I'm learning about how to help children overcome and be the best version of themselves. I repeat that a lot, but I feel that's very important. And so I'm learning how to help children get there. And as I'm learning, I've discovered that our communities here in the US are the most affected when it comes to oh my God, early intervention, developmental services, and even though we are the most affected, we have the least resources, because there's certain conditions you need to meet. And so my mission is to try and make as many resources available for as many people in our community as possible. And one way it's to join these conversations and exchange and talk. Today we're going to talk about the importance of reading from an early age. Why is it important, and how does it really help? I'm going to try to not use many technical terms because I know that can get confusing, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Don't forget to use the Q&A section to keep your questions for when we have our Q&A exchange, the last 15 minutes of this conversation. So let's start from the beginning. There was God. No, I'm just kidding. The beginning is when we are in our mother's womb, right? So the baby starts developing in mommy's womb, and it's this comfy echo space. And what happens is that the sound of our voices filters inside mama's womb, mama's belly. And the baby starts becoming familiar from, I believe it's 15 weeks, with the sound of the voices of the people who matter. So the first voice the child becomes extremely attached to is mama's voice, because it's the voice that resounds inside all the time. It's the heartbeat and mama's voice. And then it's daddy's voice, or my other mommy's voice, or tia, whoever is there supporting mommy. It can be the neighbor, it can be whoever. It also becomes familiar to the baby. And the baby starts making that difference between high-pitched voices and voices that are lower. And how does that make baby feel? And our voices and the tone of our voices come with emotions, especially us, like Dominicans. It's like we just put all the emotion in our tone of voice. And so the baby learns when mama is, happy, when mama might not be very happy, and then baby comes out. Baby comes out, and what is one of the first things we do? We engage with baby by looking at their face. And baby starts looking at our mouth. And baby starts learning language. The moment, hi Luz, welcome. The baby starts learning language from the movement of your mouth. So now sound is important, but baby is looking at how the mouth works. So when you're like, baby is learning how to make that movement, and that's so important. So important. It is scientifically proven that if a human being is not in contact with language in the first 6 years of their life, they will never speak. There was a horrible case of a child named Jeannie in California, because many people would say, oh, come on, who's not going to see language in the first, that's impossible. No, this happens. Unfortunately, it happens. And then these children, after 6 years old, will never be able to verbally communicate with anybody. And so there's a bunch of wonderful people in places where they have dedicated themselves to find ways to help those people, be part of society. And so we go back to baby looking at our mouth. And sometimes, some of us, I love talking. I can talk endlessly. But some of us don't. Some of us are just naturally quiet people. And we might not even know, I'm going to sit in front of my baby and I'm going to look at them, and what am I going to say? Okay, maybe I'm going to sing a song, and okay, what do I sing after that? And so it can be challenging. We have to respect that everybody is different. We all relate to each other in different ways. And it doesn't need to be weird or nuts. No, we don't need to use labels. It's just different. That's it. And so when you find yourself in that moment, your best friend, it's a book. A book with few words, not too long, not too complicated. 1 word, 5 pages to start reading to that newborn baby. When you read the book, you want to face your baby. Why? Because baby is learning how to use their mouth and all these muscles here by looking at you. If they cannot see you, it will only be empty sound. So as you're reading to this child, and you're making your voice, oh, this is the voice I used to hear when I was in the womb. This is mom. This is safety. This is great. I'm going to pay attention. Unless I'm hungry or tired, obviously. So babies looking at you, learning how to talk, learning how the mouth moves, creating an emotional connection with you. Because right now the words are just going in. Fast forward, and you've been doing this every day for 5 minutes. You have no idea the impact you've just made in your child's life. When a child has no contact with reading, with singing, with people who actually talk to them, this delays language development, and this delays cognitive development. What does this mean? When you're born, you have millions of neurons, so the cells in your brain. There's a bunch of connections, millions of them, which by adulthood, there's less than half, even less. But when you're born, you have all of this, which means you're full of potential. You're literally full of potential. And so as you are those months are going by, your brain starts saying, I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. I never use this. What is this? I don't need this. And then just the important ones stay in. And we know how important it is to learn a language, to learn to speak. And that is one of the most important neural connections. We want to make that connection permanent. Because again, if there is no connection at 6 years old, your brain is like, I don't need this. And that is it. It's over. So we want to make that connection. We can make that connection by talking to our child. Some of us have challenges talking for prolonged periods of time. A book can help us. Several books can help us. If you're a great storyteller and you know you can come up with a story for your child, do it. Do it. It literally doesn't need to make sense. You can go and you can be like, and there was an apple, and you make movements, because the baby's focused on your mouth and focused on the depths of the insides of your mouth too. And that's how things are wiring in his brain. So now we have a toddler. Now we have a child who has reached 12 months. They can stand, they're ready to explore the world. They're so curious, and that is your best tool. Their curiosity. Their attention span is very, very short. So you have, I believe, 1 minute to engage them, and then you have to switch. That's what makes a great teacher. A great teacher is it's half someone who is obviously trained to work with these young humans, but it's also someone who's very entertaining. It's someone who knows how to be fun and how to make fun of themselves and take things, lightly. So you have this 1-year-old, you want them to continue reading, but you cannot just be like, hey, here's a bunch of books. This is good for you. See ya. Because it's obviously not going to work. You engage with the child. Create a routine. This is when you're setting the foundation for routines. So, what routines do you already have with that, or you should already have with that child, unless there's obviously challenges that I'm sure you'll be addressing with your pediatrician. The child knows when they go to sleep. The child knows when it's time to eat. They might even know where you go to eat and where you go to sleep. They might have 1 or 2 words, maybe more, that they use to communicate with you. And so, your job is to pay attention to what they like. Typical things like some kids are obsessed with trucks, and some other children are obsessed with dolls, and then there's Legos, and some kids are obsessed with unusual things like shoes. Like, whatever it is that your child likes, don't judge them, okay? Let them be, let them choose who they are. And when you see what they like, choose books that are related to those themes. When my son was younger, he became very obsessed with cows. It was vaca. For those who don't know, vaca is cow in Spanish. And so my son would just talk about cows, and everything was a cow. Every animal with 4 legs was a cow. And what did I do? I got books about cows and stories about cows, and he was very interested. Every time I pulled one of those books, he'd be willing to sit on my lap and listen to the story with me. I got myself a cow hat, and I just made myself be silly and try to teach him words. So Work with your child's disposition. What is my child, my student, my nephew, what do they like? And then choose books that they might be interested in. Because if you choose something they're not interested in, they're not going to pay attention. And then many people might say, oh, my kid doesn't like reading. No. Have you thought about what your kid likes? And maybe try to get some stuff that they're interested in. They're a different person. They don't have to like the same things you liked as a kid. And so that is something very important that we need to keep in mind. And so once you have that stack of books, you make it your mission to create 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day in which you read with your child aloud. And, if they want to take the story another way, let them take the story another way. I don't know how many times I've had clients, which this is one of their concerns. It's like, oh, I'm reading to my kid, and then, the story goes another way. They want to say something else, and I'm telling them that, why are you arguing with a 2-year-old? Okay, okay, let's see. And what do you think happened after that? Let them use their imagination, okay? And then, maybe you're not going to have this person who is so into books, but by reading books of things that they like, they interpret the world in a positive way. They learn that the world has a place for them. I like books about traveling, but I'm super shy, right? And you think, why are you reading that if you're never going to take a trip? Well, maybe this is how I take my trip. Reading about other people's adventures, Robinson Crusoe, or, all these things. Maybe I'm going to be that person in the future who's going to write about adventures by interviewing people who have them. Let me develop, okay? And so I'm like, okay, like you're my students. Don't take it back. So once you establish these routines, once you pay attention to what your child likes, once you incentivize and promote that desire, then we have a 3-year-old. Now, those are fun because usually, and again, we all develop differently. Do not compare children. You're going to have a 3-year-old that's going to have this philosophical conversations with you about gummy bears. And then you're going to have another one that doesn't know what a gummy bear is. And that is okay. They'll get there. And so what we're going to focus on our child, or the child we're working with, is where are they and how can I help them get to the next level? No, oh my God, what am I going to do with this kid? That doesn't help. The attitude and the whole energy doesn't help. So we want to encourage, observe, and help. So you have a 3-year-old, and let's assume the 3-year-old is verbal. They tell you what they want, what they like, what they don't like, what they don't want. And those are the fun ones. And you now can ask questions. And you can now ask them, where is the story going? I'm reading a book with you, and I can ask you questions about the book. Okay, so there's a cat in the hat. And why is the cat in the hat? They might ask you that, and you can give them the answer or continue the conversation. Cognitive development. You're helping their brain create their own words, ideas, sequences. And so the cat is in the hat. Why do you think the cat is in the hat? And they might tell you the silliest thing in the world. Oh, because his mommy dropped the hat. Oh, why do you think mommy dropped the hat? Is that, and it's, and try to make the questions open-ended. Never give them a question that's going to be yes or no, because that's it. It's over. You can keep this going. Now that you are, you no longer have to just read a book for a long period of time and the child just listens. Now this is a connection. You have this emotional, nurturing connection with this person, this human being. And now you can have a conversation based off what you're reading. Why is reading important? We go back to this. I am getting here very technical. It's important because we learn how to talk. It's important because it expands our imagination. It's important because so many reasons. But another one that I don't think it's very common, it's that it creates a good habit that will come with them to the learning experience. So the child enters school. We're 5 years old now. and we enter a school setting, and we're going to see a lot of unfamiliar things. We're going to see people we've never seen before, other children. Maybe we're an only child and we were home and we're like, oh, I don't like this. But we are going to have books there, and we're going to have story time there. And that brings us back to that connection with that primary caregiver. It can be mom, it can be grandma, it can be dad, it can be uncle. That person who read me books, and then the books bring this great feeling and positive emotions, and maybe this is what I'm going to do to feel good in this classroom that's foreign and weird to me. So I'm school age, I'm 5, I pretty much have 1 more year of development to build my personality forever. So from birth to 6 years old is the full development of a human brain. But the most important years are the first 3. You get 85% of your brain. 85. Imagine, if you imagine like the pie, and then like how much is 85 is more than half. And then you have 2 more years to get 95%. And then the rest of the 5%, it's from 6 years old until age 20. So you can imagine how critical are these first 5 years for someone. This is the time when they need the hugs. This is the time when they need the kisses. This is the time when they need the yes, you can do this. This is the time when they need, no, Juanita, he's not going to wear that because he doesn't want to. Or, no, Mama Luz, thank you. He doesn't want to give you a hug right now. When he wants to give you a hug, he'll give you a hug. This is the time when they learn who they are and how they fit in the world. If that time is rough, okay, if we are not reading the stories that tell them that the world is a great place and that there is a place for them, if we are not narrating those stories for them, getting them the books with the ideas, the positive, it's going to be hard for them. I'm not saying it's impossible because we're all different. Some of us are very resilient and some of us are not. And so I'd rather have a child that I dedicate my entire existence. You are spoiling, you're not spoiling nobody. Reading with your kid, it's priceless. Because then you're going to have a teenager that's going to respect you, that's going to have a positive relationship with you, that is going to respect themselves. It's going to know how to say no when they need to say no. And it's going to know how to be themselves without being afraid. And that is what we want. So when research is telling us that this is what we have to do, child goes to school, we already read all these books, they have this great language, they have the habit. What do we do now? We continue to work with their disposition. And what that means is we continue to get them books of things they like. And we continue to support them as human beings. And then comes the next personality boost. I like to call it a boost. And we have preteens. Those are fun. I'm not there yet. My son is only 3. But I've worked with them. And they're super fun if they like you. If they don't like you, I don't think they're that fun. So you have the preteen that is now encountering the challenges of education, which means I like math. Do I not like math? I don't want to do this. Oh, too much homework. I want to hang out with my friends. We're building up to that teenager. And so what do I do then? Or how can I help my child then to continue the reading habits? You are their role model. Many people get surprised when I say this to them. For life. Your child can use you, the person who they have been living with and growing up with, to say, I don't want to be like this person. That's a role model. Or they can use you as the example. They say, wow, this is it. And obviously that's not the topic, but there's layers of toxicity on that, which we're not going to address. But the main idea here is that we want to be positive role models for our children. Do you read books? Do you talk about the books you read with your child? Does your child ever see you with a book in your hands? What kind of things do you and your child talk about? Is it general culture? Is it history? Or is it celebrity gossip? we need to find topics that are entertaining, but at the same time that are going to bring our children back to where it's important for them to be. Not necessarily where we want them to be, because what we want is what we want, but where we know it would be beneficial for them. You know that if your child is reading a book that is not age appropriate, or it's promoting an idea that might not be the greatest, they shouldn't have that book, or they should be mature enough or feel confident enough to hold conversations about topics. For example, I have a book here with me. It's called Drawn Together. It's a little coffee stain. But the reason why I like this book, it's because of the story. Many of us can relate to. And so the story is about a little boy and his grandfather, and how he doesn't really like his grandfather because he's old and boring and he doesn't speak English. The little boy was born here. He speaks English. Grandpa is an immigrant. And so the little boy, it's that preteen on the way of teenage. He wants to be cool. And his parents just drop him off at his grandpa's house. There's no okay, watch the kid. But they find a way to connect. So the message of the book is very positive and very beautiful. But I believe that this is also part of our lives sometimes. The conversations we have, the books we are reading, articles we're reading, need to make children connect with their culture, their stories, and the things we know they could benefit from. And do not be afraid to have tough conversations. We go to teenagers. That's when the tough conversations start emerging. You have a toddler that can talk back to you, that can hold an argument. And what you want is to show them that they matter. They can express their opinions. They can put their voices out there. And you will listen. And it's always a matter of creating the dynamic of respect and creating the dynamic of I'm listening, okay? We, in my culture, we have this idea that, why don't you listen to me? That listening is obeying. We cannot get the two confused. Listening to someone doesn't mean you're going to obey. It means you're listening. It means you want to have a conversation. But many of us sometimes say, oh, my child doesn't listen to me. We are confusing listening with obeying. You're dealing with another human being, and if you are a colorful character like me, your child is going to give you colors too. So be prepared. You prepare yourself by creating the connection. And then when you create that connection, you want to bring those books that are going to talk about the topics your child wants and the things that are interested to both of you. But if you didn't create that in the beginning, remember, from birth to 3, from birth to 5, it's going to be very hard to create it later. So you have to start from birth. You have to get familiar with who your child is. You have to get books and put books in their room and make them part of their life that are about the topics they want. You can suggest things you'd like them to read, but you cannot make it about you when they don't. We, many times, I say we because I've done it too. We make it about ourselves a lot of times. I'm going to be I'm so disappointed. All right. And you are allowed to be. But your child is also allowed to make these choices. A book to read. It's okay to make that choice. Now, a piercing, no, I'm just kidding. I'm going back to my own childhood. But in conclusion, creating the habit of reading is beneficial for your child's development. It's also beneficial for your relationship with your child. More than anything, it helps them discover who they are through the stories of other people. It can be a fantastic story, a fantasy. It can be fictional. It can be a true story. What are they ready for? It is way better for them to use their own imagination and develop critical thinking than for them to watch a movie. A movie, it's art, but it's somebody's creation. This person imagined the characters, imagined the setups themselves and put it out there for you to enjoy. But what if you could do that yourself? Maybe you can be the next movie producer. Maybe you're going to be the next illustrator. Maybe you're going to be the next, You're reading a book about archaeology. Maybe you're going to go and explore those ruins yourself. We don't necessarily need to think about it in a way that our child is going to read books about, I don't know, social justice and become an activist. But maybe they're going to read books about social justice so they can be a good person, so then they can bring that to the people around them. They don't necessarily have to become an activist. Let them be, but put those positive, fruitful ideas in their hands from early years. And there's a lot of resources for free books. There's a lot of resources for early childhood learning. If you guys have any questions, I am 100% available on my Instagram website, and you can send your questions my way. I'm happy to help. Again, that's what I'm here for. I know resources are sometimes scarce. We don't know where to go, and having children can be overwhelming, but we need to support each other. That's the best way to go. I believe, oh, that was Citizen. I believe that it is time now for our Q&A. And I am a dinosaur, so technology is really overwhelming to me. So I am going to look, I see a question here, and you guys can ask any questions you have, and I'm gonna try to answer to the best of my abilities. So somebody named Carmen left me a question, and she says that her son has autism, and so that is a developmental delay, and those children need extra support. I am going to message you privately, Carmen, because I know you're asking me, and I'm going to give you an extensive message. But to address children with special needs and reading, you know your child better than anyone. So some children are, autism is a spectrum, which means you can be very, very far from the end or very, very close. And so it manifests differently on every child or every adult. There's adults with autism. What we want to do is, first, where is our child developmentally? And then we can still read to them. We just need to know what's their limit. Some children have a very short attention span per se, and when they have special needs, then that shortens a little bit more. But we can still read and make it fun to them. It's all about talking to your pediatrician and getting early intervention if you need it, and the resources. There's a lot of wonderful ABA therapists that implement storytelling, which many of us enjoy, and it works wonders when treating and doing therapy with young children. I believe here in New York City, if you have a child under the age of 2 and you suspect that they might have any kind of delay, you can bring it up to either their daycare, their teacher, or your pediatrician, and they'll refer you to early intervention, which is a completely free, completely confidential service to assess your child and tell you exactly what they need and help you get that. So I highly recommend that if anybody has a child or knows a child that they think might need special support, you reach out to early intervention. If you need that information, reach out to me. I'll give it to you. No problem. Let me see any other questions. Don't be afraid to write them as a comment. I can see I missed some, but you can write it again, and I'm happy to answer. If you want books recommendations for your child, Dominican Writers has great resources and books. So that's one place to start. But again, always try to find what your child is interested in and then go from there. It's the absolute best thing to do. Create a connection with that human being. We want more children who grow up to be healthy adults, and less adults who missed on their childhood, because it's a very critical time for learning. Well, I believe we're coming to an end. I believe we're coming to the end of our little chat today, and it was awesome to see all the people who joined. Thank you so much. I'm Lissarette Nisnevich. You can follow me on my Instagram at Lissarette. go to my website. And I'm about to release a new children's book. It's called LV Makes New Friends. It's a bilingual book, and it talks about our differences. I have a child that's the son of a Jewish man. I mean, my husband and I are an interracial couple, and I just feel it's important to address that there's a lot of us out there who have children, colorful children, and our stories should be out there for our children to read and other children to read as well. I think I have one last question. So I see the question is, are there any specific books to read depending on the stage of development? Yes. So I can actually make a list for next week, but I can give you quick tips of how to choose books depending on the age of your child. If your child is an infant, the books that are for babies literally have 3 to 4 pages. 1 word in each page, maybe 2. Okay, and the reason is obviously because they wouldn't be able to withstand a long story. And the point of the reading, it's not for you to tell them a story and for them to memorize it and analyze it. It's simply for you to connect with them, for them to see your mouth moving, and to listen to the sound of words. So books for babies, I don't have one with me right now. Book for toddlers look something like this. So they're usually very resistant. I highly recommend very resistant books for toddlers, because if not, well, we all know what's going to happen. I know. And then you see how they have 2 words now, right? And they're very repetitive. So when you read, if it's repetitive, try to make it fun. So this book, for example, is called Shake, Shake, Shake. And so when I'm starting to read it, I always say, shake, 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 and the kids like it, and you make them move. Yeah, you see, tap it with your fingers, and then it gets a little bit longer, but the page count is literally like 8 pages. And then when they get a little older, you can get more complex topics. And so we have a 5-year-old, and this is something that they would like to talk about probably. I want my mommy. Who hasn't heard a 5-year-old tell their teacher, I want to go home, I want my mommy, or I don't like you? So reading a book that talks about something that they are familiar with can help. And so you see that books that are meant for older children now have way more words. And so it is a story. It has a problem, it has a beginning, a problem, and then the problem resolves and a happy ending. Usually that's how it goes. And there's obviously way more pages for you to read with your child. I love cultural books because I like to teach about that. In my school, I try to teach the children about other cultures. So I have books about African countries. I have this book is I love it, and it's from a Thai writer and illustrator. And then I have this one, which is Adivinanzas en Mixteco. So it's a Mexican book in one of the 56 languages that are dialects that are spoken in Mexico. And so these are great conversations to have with our little toddlers here, and they love it. And then they go home and they start conversations with their parents who might not know about these things. So it's super fun. Alrighty, well, if you don't have any other questions for me, I'm gonna wait for another question, or maybe not, but I really do hope to see you all again next Saturday, where we are going to continue to talk about the importance of reading, and we're gonna give tips, and maybe we're gonna read a story. I don't know, no, I'm just kidding. But I really, really hope that this information is useful to you. Remember that language development is not the only reason for promoting reading. It's finding yourself finding your spot in the world. It's imagination. It's connection with your family members, connecting with the world. I feel that that's so important. And schools here focus a lot on math, and yeah, we got to learn how to read, and we got to learn how to learn how to math. But the part where we connect with other human beings' stories, I feel that's the critical part. We need more empathy. We need to know that everybody out there is another human being just like us, and they deserve not only the stories to be read and heard, but for us to see like, hey, yeah, I feel the same way too. Oh my God. That's why so many children love, fantasy stories like Harry Potter or other things like that. Because they can see themselves in that, or they would like to experience something like that. And some children don't get to experience adventure or have fun in any other way that's not a book. And so that's why it's important for all of you who are writing to continue doing it. And for all of you who have children to continue reading them the wonderful stories that are out there and that will continue to shape the world for the better. I'm sure of that. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It was my absolute pleasure to talk to you this afternoon, and I hope to see you next week. Pórtense bien. Nos vemos. Bye bye.